Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for September 11th, 2024. It is the day of the teacher sage, Mercury's day, Odin's day, the 21st of Virgo, the 9th of Vine, the 21st of Bear, and the 12th of Tumandur. So, 9/11, it is a date that I think that is still very important to mark. It was certainly a defining moment for the people of my generation. The world that was before that point is really, it bears absolutely no resemblance to the world that we're currently coping with today. And many of the things that those of us have great opposition to and things that just aren't right about our society, a lot of it really started coming up to the surface and finding expression after that date. A lot of the authoritarianism we're all opposed to, a lot of the wars that are just hither and thither, on grounds that may or may not be justified. A lot of it had its root in this because the response to it, it wasn't simply about those who committed the deeds. It's about other extraneous projects to people who they led the American public to believe were involved, but perhaps were not. And look how many people died. Nearly 3,000 just at the World Trade Center alone, nearly 200 at the Pentagon, 40 on Flight 93. And as for the hijackers who died, who cares? I mean, they got no more than what they deserved for what they did and for what they were involved with. And then you'll see in this other graph, the times, when the North Tower was struck, when the South Tower was struck, when the Pentagon was hit, when the South Tower collapsed. Then in between that and the North Tower collapsing, that's when Flight 93 crashed. It was a day that was truly a shock to the senses, and it's very difficult to explain what that felt like at the time because it wasn't like it is now, where every single day had some brand new kind of spiritual crisis and world crisis, economic crisis, military crisis. It wasn't like that, and so everyone was deeply impacted. And now it's 2024. There are people who had yet to be born, yet to be conceived, who are now not only of adult years and voting, they're actually 21. They've attained the absolute full adult legal majority. They have no memory of what it was like before. They never experienced the world before. All they know is what has essentially come from that day. And that's a very sobering thought that never particularly leaves me. And I just wanted to leave it with you there to keep in mind and to, I think anyone who asks questions about that day is more than justified. We've never been told the truth about anything, it seems like, in my lifetime, about any major event. So I do applaud the people who have had the courage to look into it, who are unafraid of where evidence might take them. And for everyone who did lose someone on that day, I realize I'm sure you still mourn. I'm sure it still hurts. There is no replacement for friends and family, particularly to lose them in such a violent fashion. I hope we never again experience anything like that. But this I think it's an important day to mark the occasion of it. Now on to something slightly less emotionally intense. We have today's astrology configurations. The sun is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing industry. The moon is in second quarter Sagittarius, mutable fire, representing adventure. At 7:21 p.m., it goes void of course, and then at 9:38 p.m. Central Time, we go into the second quarter Capricorn, cardinal earth, which represents tradition. Mercury is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing linguistic skill. Venus is in Libra, cardinal air, representing harmony. Mars is in Cancer, cardinal water, which is about seeking security. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is to redefine dreams. Uranus is retrograding in Taurus, fixed earth, representing rebellion. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is spiritual awakenings. And Pluto is retrograding in Capricorn, cardinal earth, which represents transformations. Now, a few retrograde reminders of how to make best use of this energy. For Saturn, reclaim your authority. For Uranus, reconsider how you rebel. Neptune, reclaim your magic. Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. We have a waxing gibbous moon at this time, which means it is the moment when we need to be cultivating our intentions. You know those intentions you set during the new moon? At least I hope you did. It's time to really start working on bringing those to fruition. The Capricorn moon will be handy for that. Some of its dues are strategy, organization, solitary planning, all of which is very good if you are pursuing goals at this time. Some of the don'ts are dealing with issues related to delicate relationships, getting into conflict with enforcement agencies, or being coldly strategic. So, on this day of Mercury, after last month's communication snafus, the eloquence and clarity of Mercury and Virgo is probably very welcome to us all. Strive to be articulate and precise as what you possibly can be today. The moon in Capricorn will aid in this process. Its energies are going to naturally lend themselves towards strategic action. And of course, strategic action is usually the product of strategic thought, strategic vocal expressions. It's about being a little bit more careful in what you are saying and what you're doing and how it is being done. Now, for today's tarot, we have the Six of Swords. The number six represents the stage two. And for the suit of swords, think the rational masculine, projective energy, air element, and thought. And the keywords for this card are leaving difficulties behind, recovery after tribulation, and accepting support. This is actually a very good card considering what day this is. As a lot of people are thinking about a terrible tragedy in the past, this does suggest about perhaps people are coming to a better place with it. They're coming to find a sense of peace. They're able to look back on their memories with a sense of a sense of remembering the good things about who the person was, the wonderful things that they did have in their life, and it'll be less about regrets and anger. And the accepting support is very important because we are all so traumatized, especially after the past couple of years. Nothing has been normal. Everything has just been, absolutely apocalyptic, one thing after the other. And even when we ourselves think, okay, I don't think the situation is really that dire in and of itself, it's impossible to completely escape all of the messaging from the media that gains a lot of money and a lot of influence by convincing us all to be frightened of our own shadows. So accepting support from people who are not wanting to give in to the hysteria. That's very important at this time because by accepting their assistance, you're also probably assisting them in return because it's showing them that, okay, there are people who want to get better, who want to recover, who don't want to spend the rest of their lives, jumping just because the media or the government tells them to jump. So there's a lot of good energy with this card. I think it's very respectful of the emotional turmoil of whatever source that people are experiencing right now. And I think it's also shining that ray of hope of it doesn't always have to be this way. And you can play an active role in changing that situation. Now, today's Celtic triad, three indignities of a man: being quick to suspicion, being quick to anger, being slow to labor. So you probably had a few faces, whether from real life or from fictional stories about the kind of man that this describes. The men who are super suspicious, especially the ones who really don't have any cause. They aren't just tiresome to deal with. They are prone to rash actions. They constantly have to be comforted. They constantly have to be placated, and no amount of proof or devotion is really ever going to be enough for someone of that mindset. And it does diminish a man as a man because he's not facing the world with confidence. He's not showing himself that he believes in his own capabilities or his ability to deal with adversity if and when it pops up. It's just he's always looking for the next problem, and that does really diminish them. It is an indignity. And then this business about being quick to anger. The men who lose their tempers at the slightest provocation, you really can't trust them. You can't trust them to deal with anything delicate. You can't trust them to deal with anything that's going to cause them to have a need to set aside their immediate emotional reaction in order to actually deal with the situation. You just don't know if they're going to act properly. You just don't know what they're going to do. And, they might be terribly sorry afterwards, but that's not going to fix the damage done when they were in the midst of expressing their inner turmoil. So men who do have more mastery over their emotions, that actually does dignify them, and the lack of it is what makes them look like fools. And then being slow to labor. Men who refuse to work are a terrible drain on everyone around them, particularly if they are already married, if they already have children, if anyone at all has the right to say, I need to depend upon you to fulfill your end of the bargain. They're just going to be a source of misery for that person. And that person's just going to think, well, if I wait all of my life on, this fellow to do what he ought to have been doing without anyone nagging, yeah, I could be old and gray and still nothing will be accomplished. And so it leads people to saying, I have to make pragmatic choices. I have to simply forge ahead. And then, of course, whatever relationships that they were, because of the laziness on the part of the man, those relationships deteriorate. And then when they finally fail and someone says, I'm just not sure why I'm still married to you, or I'm not sure why we're still friends. I'm not sure why I keep paying you a paycheck because you're really not doing anything to earn it. Whatever the state of that relationship is, it comes to an end. And of course, the men who have become accustomed and even justified in their sloth, they're not going to understand the role that their own actions played in this outcome. So lots to think about there. Then today's magical correspondences, they are centered on the theme of renewal. The color is brown. The plant is the oak tree. I found a very pretty autumnal oak tree for us to admire. The animal is the moose, and the crystal is petrified wood. And yes, of course, scientifically, petrified wood is not a crystal. It's just that in magical practice, it's categorized with the crystals because it's treated and used as if it were a crystal. So hopefully that is enough of an explanation in case there's anyone just a hair too literal minded watching this video. So renewal. Generally, we do think of renewal in the springtime, but each season does have its own variation of the restoration of energies, and it should be energies on the presentation sheet. I don't know why it says enemies. Flying fingers strike again. But when we think about renewal in the autumn, that's going to be a little bit different depending upon how you react to the season generally. I mean, for me, the more autumnal it is, the more the weather cools down, the more the trees turn, just the more sense of I feel reinvigorated in life. The very last of the plants are putting on their best show. The very last of the flowers are blooming, and they'll stay with us until it does finally get too cold. Everything's getting wrapped up. I'm seeing the end of the story. Things are coming to a conclusion, and it renews me. It's very satisfying to see this come about. And also, that also kind of tickles my mind about what is it that comes next. It allows me to enjoy the ending of one chapter, look forward to the beginning of another, and this is really my time of year where I do feel that surge of renewal. For other people, they will feel that at different times of the year, and of course, there's nothing wrong with that. This is all our nature. This is very personal, very individual type of things. But even if autumn is not necessarily your time, and I know for some people who watch the channel, it is not. If you can look for ways in which there is some kind of resurgence, even however small it might be. It could be something as simple as looking forward to a particular flavor of latte that you can now get for yourself. Whatever that thing is, I would encourage you to really cling to it. Cling to the good things that you can cling to, even if this time of year isn't really your jam. Now, for today's practice, I'm posing the question, what was your most recent spiritual insight? And it doesn't have to be earth shattering, it can be something small, but what was the last dot that you connected? I think it's important to kind of mark these things because when you have these moments of things coming together, even if they seem very small at the moment, they might build up to something a bit bigger later on down the road. Then, what lesson can your natal Mercury sign take from Mercury's current position? This is a way of comparing and contrasting energies between your native astrological positions and how they're interacting with the energies at any given time. And there's always something that can be learned from it, even if perhaps what your natal Mercury is an energy that's very incompatible with what's going on right now. There's still something that can be gleaned, and it's a way of perhaps reframing any upsets in the energy flow that you might be experiencing, any kind of disruptions. It's a way to maybe take a little bit of the sting out of it and give it some context so you can figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this? Then for the heart chakra, What are you falling in love with this season? Again, this might be a very difficult question for people who don't necessarily like the autumn, but there's bound to be something. There's bound to be something good that you can really, really appreciate. So look for that. Then today's hermetic principle is polarity. What opposites do you observe in action? And the more seasonal this observation is, the better. And then for the witch's pyramid, let's look at the east wall. East wall has a lot to do with the intellectual processes and the element of air. Is your reasoning ability impacted by the season? And I would really encourage you not to give this, just kind of a one off answer of, oh, yes, it is, or no, it isn't. I mean, just peel back the layers here, especially if you're experiencing seasonal depression, because then your reasoning ability is actually being impacted. It's being overshadowed by the emotions. And so that's not giving you the clearest logical path as you're evaluating things. It can really, really bias you. And for other people for whom this is a wonderful time of year, you might be experiencing profound clarity, a clarity you don't have at any other time of year. So, really look into this and try to figure out the why of it all. I think it would be most instructive. And then today's journal prompt. We have this very pretty autumnal living room, and I'm throwing the question at you of, do you live or do you merely exist at your place of residence? Because people, as a general rule, they just do not define themselves or see themselves, or identify themselves with their homes very much at all. And it shows. It shows in the way that they treat things. It shows in the way they treat the other members of their household. If everything is temporary and not really going to be around, and you don't really want to get invested in it, you're not going to be able to get beyond the threshold of just existence. To really live, that requires investment. It requires putting down roots and saying that this really is home. Even if you're renting, you can still create at least some semblance of a feeling of home if you decide to make that a priority. And if you cannot feel at home in the place where you sleep, I think that's going to be inherently disruptive to the rest of your life. So this isn't a small thing. And I do encourage people just to examine that question for themselves. But that is all I have for you today. Have an absolutely magical day. Blackbird Grimoire is available on YouTube and Rumble if you would care to follow me there. And of course, if you'd like to spend time with other magical practitioners, the Oak and Elder Witchery on Gilded is available to you. Link in the description box to join. Now, I have made the decision to close down my X account at the end of this month. It doesn't have a whole lot of traction because I'm just not really able to grow it. I used to be able to stream my videos straight to X, and I used to do that every morning. But then at some point, they removed that capability. Apparently, that's something you're going to have to pay for now, along with being able to actually post outside links. Because if I could at least post links to my videos, that would still be serving a useful purpose to draw people's attention to the channel and draw their attention, to the witchery and to the possibility of forming community there. It would still serve a useful function, but right now, the most I can do is just kind of post things, have some conversations, and so few conversations actually go well on X. It just, on the whole, I just wasn't really getting anything out of it, and I decided, you know what? Samhain is coming up after the end of this month. That's the witch's new year. Let's actually start making things new, start making some different decisions, and getting everything on a different footing in preparation for that spiritual new year that's really coming up a lot quicker than we think. So that's basically my Samhain present to me. I am letting X go. I'm not going to worry about that end of things, and I'll just do what I did when I first began this channel. Just trust the gods that if there's someone who would benefit from anything that I had to say, that they would find a way to wander themselves here. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.